Hello, everyone. I know it's probably been already now like a month since I've released a YouTube video or something like that. But to be honest, man, it's just, I guess I just haven't been in the mood for it. Because I could always, just record or whatever, but um, it seems like the days just go by so freaking quick now, so fast, like you can't even account for it anymore. Um, and it just seems like like by the end of the day or whatever, I'm just like, wait, it's already 1 a.m. or something, 12 a.m. or 10 p.m. whatever. I'm not able to account for every little thing, but what I am trying to do is I'm trying to use the car that I have just like to my advantage and like for leverage and stuff like that. So obviously, now that I have a vehicle, like I have that ability. So instead of just staying at home and like being like, not necessarily, just kind of being inefficient with my time because of the situation. Um, Now it's like, okay, well, let's do this. I'm pulling the trigger left and right, um, to be able to do whatever I got to do because I have the resources now. So I mean, everybody's kind of like that when they don't have the resources. I was when I was a kid. Like you would get bored fast or whatever the case is. I don't know, but that's beside any point I'm trying to make, I guess. Anyway, it's Friday, May 30th, 2025, and yeah, it's just like I said, the days are just going by so fast, and I've been working on my documents, and they're taking a lot longer than I thought they were going to take, but that's because I'm trying to account for a lot of things that can happen, and you have to word it properly. I mean, to some extent, wording is always like what takes time. It's like almost like you're writing a novel or something. And so, like, I'm not gonna say what happened. I'm not gonna say who it was, but somebody was here and they got drunk. And I mean, I didn't get drunk. I slept really. I slept like at 10 p.m. or whatever. They stayed up almost all night. And I'm not gonna say who it is, but they basically did some weird shit, like stuff, like they started peeing on my couch and all this stuff, and then so basically they left because the people around me were like, this is not acceptable, and then they were like taking my side on things, and so they just left. And then it wasn't really much of a troublemaker. It was just that, like the whole idea of peeing on a couch or peeing, and then I had to, um, and that was it. That's all it was just basically peeing on a couch and the rug. And so I had to do a deep clean. Well, it was my girlfriend helped me, and we ended up taking all the clothes, all the the whatever was on the couch to the all the pillows and stuff like that, and the blanket to the washing machine, to the laundromat, and we just like we had to spend the money or whatever, just take care of them in the time. So that's all taken care of. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, it seems like things are going by really fast, but at the same time, it's also one other reason is not just the leverage, but it's also like I'm also having a lot of fun. Like we went to Monterey last weekend, she and I, my girlfriend and I, and we had a day, and that was just on a Saturday, and I basically didn't, well, I cheated with respect to calories, but I just kind of was like, let's go at it, so we basically went to like 4 different restaurants. I think it was technically three, but we did some other stuff. But anyway, three or four different restaurants, and for that whole day. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and somewhere in between. And I was just like, I think I never spent that much money on food. A little over $300, just on food alone. And it was like for both her and I. But basically it was just like a day because I wanted to like go out and have fun and do something a little different. It's like because you just put in the work every day and stuff, and you got to do something fun every once in a while. Because like I said, I have certain goals that kind of constrain me to being a certain way, and it just has to be that way. There's no other way around it. I mean, Um, sure, there might be other approaches you could try, but if you know what works, do it, but and so sometimes it just requires some discipline, and so, like, I mean, that goes for a lot of things. If you know it works, uh why would you try to do something an easier way if you know it can work? It's like sometimes you just have to do it that way in order for you to, and in order for you to get it done, and that requires some discipline, which, I mean, that's like the least of your concern at that point is discipline, because if, as long as you know it works, then you should appreciate that fact and be able to have it, to incorporate the discipline to be able to stick to it. So that goes for everything, like diet, AP exams, SAT, whatever might be, getting A's in your classes and stuff like that. And so, and even work too. Like if you're trying to improve your productivity and you know what works. Now some people are not going to pull the trigger even on that. Like they're gonna just not. They just don't have the ability to have that discipline, even though they know, or maybe they don't know it works, but they kind of have an idea that it will work. So then they just don't have the discipline to stick to it. But I think, like I didn't have that discipline when I was younger, but I mean, significantly younger, but I didn't get it until I was about 19 or 20 years old, maybe, and 18 years old too. But yeah, I mean, because it's not until you find out that, it's not until you lose something significant that you find out the value of what actually works. Or if something no longer works, then you start to value the discipline you should have had, and then you actually have the discipline to do whatever it is you want to do. And if you know it works, so like for example, so like I'm saying, if you know it works, then do it, even if you need to have the discipline to do it. So that's where I'm at with a lot of things, like because like from my experience, I know that like you need to have these things laid out and written out, so you need that you need to incorporate a discipline to be able to put the docs together, and also the idea of nutrition too. So I have a goal of getting down to 10% body fat, and I'm actually getting to that goal. I'm a little surprised. So for example, I'm not doing the same thing but over and over again, but I'm basically doing what, like, kind of like driving in a way. It's like I'm adjusting based off of what's going on. So right now I got a DEXA scan about a week ago. I have to look back. I don't know if it was a week. I think it was a week ago now. And I'm at about 16% body fat now. So that was about a week ago, and the scale didn't go up. So yeah, I mean, it fluctuates, but it didn't go up significantly. And so what I've been doing to take care of that is definitely not going to work for everybody, but I've been sticking to what works for me. So but what works for me gets harder and harder as I get towards that goal. And so but I would say that probably more than anything, the discipline is more difficult to cultivate, like to have for that. So because I know it works, but for me to stick to it, it's like it makes everything feel harder. It makes everything feel harder. And so, I mean, this whole invincible thing about willpower and stuff kind of comes into play. Like right now, like I'm speaking to you and stuff like that, but obviously I'm in pretty deep ketosis, but I just have this feeling of like being not really tired, but like things don't feel they feel harder to get through. So if I had more protein in my system or more sugar or whatever, which I don't, I just have fat right now, then I'd feel more, it would be easier to do things. But now, like when you don't have that, you have to be more intentional about how you move and stuff like that and how you think. But at the same time, you think better. That's the whole idea of ketosis. So so it's like some people would not want to go through that difficult process, and well, I choose to because I know it works, and it's kind of the same thing with a lot of other things too. Like you may not want to do something, but then it just requires the discipline to be able to get through it. So anyway, there's that, and so like I could technically not care about my goal, my fitness goal, but I choose to, so I know that I have to go through this, and it's kind of tough, but it doesn't have to be impossible because, if it really is going to affect how everything is, if it's really going to have a negative influence on other things, then yeah, you could adjust and say, okay, well maybe this is not a good idea. And so far it hasn't. Nobody ever said anything. Geez, that fasting routine or whatever is bad for you. Like nobody's ever went up to me and said, hey, you're slowing down on your job. You look like you're about to faint and all this stuff. Nobody's ever said that, and I don't notice it either. So, it's kind of an illusion sometimes. Sometimes I think that I'm going slow or I'm not doing things right, but it's all an illusion. It's like, it's all an illusion. It's just because it's a stressful situation. Like if I'm in the sauna for more than 30 minutes, I feel like I just can't handle it. I'm like panicking and stuff. But it's like I'm not doing the same thing like over and over again. So there's that. But then this goes for like almost everything. And so this is kind of like where I'm at. And this is also where I was at also with the renovations, although it didn't really look like it. The renovations required a certain, like the kind of discipline that, because it's going to work, what you want is what you want, and it just takes time for you to put it together. And you're basically like, okay, well, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. But then at the end of the day, you realize like everything takes so much time. So then before you know it, it's like 1 a.m. or whatever, and you just got to go to sleep and do whatever, and then repeat, rinse, repeat or whatever. So yeah, so like but the thing about the renovations is that I actually intentionally would have meat sticks and all these protein bars, and not protein bars, but like protein shakes, anything that I was basically carnivore. I was just trying to do as much protein as possible, and then I was gaining a bunch of weight over time because of it. And I think for some people, like that protein kind of diet or whatever, where you're just having so much of it, works if you want to get down to like 20% body fat. But yeah, it was not working for me. I had done that 7-day fast, and then I went down to like 159, I think, 159.9 pounds, and then, which is where I'm at pretty much right now. And then I gained 5% body fat back because, and I started looking thick and soft because I just didn't understand that it's not necessarily about just being on carnivore or whatever. But at the same time, I also didn't have a goal, and at the same time, I didn't do the fast right because the fasting, I just didn't, I didn't cave into it at all. Like if I wanted to really get down to below like a certain percentage, I could have done that within a certain time frame. Like I could have done a 14, 30, 40 day water fast, God forbid. But let's just say, if I did that, for sure I'd get down below, and then I'd gain a little bit of fat afterwards because I just wouldn't know any better. But it wouldn't be up to like 20% or whatever. It'd go from like, I don't know, 8% all the way up to like 13% if I did the 40-day fast, water fast or whatever. But like, yeah, it's just, all this stuff that you want to achieve, it just requires so much, so much discipline and the ability to not cave in, to veer off too much, and to be able to stick to it, whatever you got to do. And if that thing is suddenly not as important to you, so I could say that then you're gonna kind of sacrifice one thing for the other. So it's kind of what happened, because the renovations took over. They were more important. They were like the discipline required to do that was so much that anything else was like, oh yeah, goodbye. Let's just stick to this and then get it done. And so that's kind of how I feel right now about my fitness goals, because it's just that much harder than it used to be. Um, but it's not really like that, because it's interesting, because the kind of thing that I'm trying to do is the fitness goal approach um, allows me to be able to focus on other things if I really wanted to. So, but see, that's the whole thing, because uh, it just makes everything a lot harder to do. So that's why, like, one day will go by and it just feels like nothing. Because basically it takes more effort for me to be able to, like, use my brain and stuff, and like, I wouldn't say use my brain, but it takes me more effort to put force into things than it used to be. And then, like, once I start, like, actually having a good hearty meal, once I start doing that, then it's almost like I recovered and I can do that again. Whereas when I'm in the fasted state, I can't help but it just becomes harder. It doesn't become impossible. It just becomes harder to put more force into things, and that force is sometimes required to just get it done. But that's the thing. So, but that again, it doesn't inhibit you from being able to think and understand what you're doing, and trying to get through things a step at a time. And so that's why things are taking forever at this point. I mean, so I've been working on my docs, but there are times where I'll get some stuff done, but it just won't be the whole thing. And then you know like I used to be able to do, like, for the PE exam, for example. Oh yeah, I mean, I was basically high on sugar the whole time. Like, it was just like left and right. I was just like powering through everything. So I wasn't trying to be in a ketotic state at all at that time, and I was fat too. So, or I should say bigger. But um, so yeah, I mean, like, sometimes you got to just put force into things, and I'm very fortunate that the stuff that I normally do doesn't require that, which I'm really happy about. I mean, it's usually just like a simple, this is what it is, boom, you're done, for the most part of what I do. And but like to do the things that have these large projects, like, for example, with like I said, the renovations. There's times where you don't have any other choice. You just gotta put that force into it, and it'd be the same thing as if I was working for myself. So sometimes you do have to sacrifice one thing for another, but it's very interesting, because I'm finding that what I've chosen to do, which is basically ketosis, very strict ketosis, is allowing me to basically try to achieve those fitness goals while simultaneously being able to do my job and live, and basically be able to think towards the things that I want to do. So, like, I'm able to sit down and figure out what, be able to use my brain to be able to do things, and in a way it's more effective, but you're just not putting that force into it, that where you're basically like moving mountains, to be able to get to the other side, kind of thing. Instead, it's more of like, okay, well, let's think about this logically, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, well, this thing needs to be done, this thing needs to be done. And then once the end of the day is done, you start looking back and you're like, damn, I got to do 20 other things. Whereas if I had sugar, or if I had protein or whatever, those 20 things would be like, I just basically, like, do it within 10 minutes, and I wouldn't have to wait the next day or another time to be able to accomplish it. Because yeah, it's just, I described it to my friend like this, like, imagine if you have to do a certain things, it's like 1 2 3 done, 1 2 3 done, 1 2 3 done. It's so consistent, and that's how it is with everything I'm doing. Whereas sometimes, especially if the project or whatever the task you're doing is very ambiguous, You just have to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it just like, it just kind of put force into it like that. And I don't really have that ability. Like if I try to do that, I'll just crash, or like I'll probably pass out or whatever. I have to be sequential. I don't have any other choice, and it's very interesting how that works. Um, and if I was forced, let's say if there was somebody at work that was trying to force me to be that way, even that doesn't even affect me. I'm just like, okay, I don't care what you think, and I just go back to the sequential ways of approaching my tasks versus this sugar rush kind of approach. And I remember I was doing that. I've been doing that my whole life, pretty much, that sugar rush approach, where it's like, boom, it's almost like you're on steroids, but you're not really. You're just forcing your way through. But so I'm not. So that, I mean, at least I'm able to have that option. I can imagine that if I own my own firm or whatever, trying to do all this stuff, it would be a lot harder because I'd have to put a lot more force into different tasks rather than a sequential thing. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people at work might actually sense that I'm like this. So I think somebody was like, "Hey, are you on keto?" Like they didn't know, and I was like, "I'm not supposed to talk about this at work, like because you don't want to give the impression that you're trying to like go against the grain or something, which is like you don't want to, So it's, I know a lot of people may like just be yourself, blah blah blah, but you gotta understand, like when it comes to people, when you're employed and stuff, you don't want to sound like you're trying to do different things. You just don't. So I'm like, I just kind of like, yeah, I'm doing the keto thing because he saw I was eating such inchy nuts and stuff like that. So I mean, I think people are kind of sensing that at work. So hopefully I don't get, nobody kind of like, it doesn't really rock the boat too much, but I think they're starting to notice, and other people are probably starting to notice too. But maybe at some point I might have to be like, oh shit, this is not a good thing I'm doing. But I mean, hell, fuck, I'm at 16% body fat. I mean, 6% is a long ways to go because the more you get down to below, the harder it is to lose the weight. So I mean, it's like an exponential thing. Even though it's 6%, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're linearly going to get there, but to get to 10% body fat. But yeah, I mean, this is what I've chosen to do. But yeah, I mean, and that's actually an improvement compared to the time I did the 7-day fast. So I'm confident that things are going to work out. I mean, obviously what I'm doing too, I'm not just kind of sitting down, obviously, like now, I don't know, it feels like it's easier to run. It feels like it's easier to do pull-ups. It feels like it's just easier to do things. So now I'm actually more active, I would say, than before. Or I should say that when I go to the gym, I'm more active, or when I'm, when I do give myself the time to do those things, I'm more active now. So it kind of has like a linear effect in terms of that because you're doing more exercise. So maybe it kind of goes along with the weight loss or whatever. But yeah, it's coming along pretty good. And but yeah, I mean, it does kind of make things kind of harder in a way, So like I said, it's that discipline aspect. It's like, if it works, go fucking do it, So I know there's a lot of these sugar diet people out there that are probably like looking at me and saying like, dude, you don't need to do this to yourself. But I mean, it is what it is, I used to do the sugar fasting when I was about 13 years old, 14 years old. And I didn't even know I was doing it. Because what I would do is I would look at people that were doing whatever they wanted to do, right? Like my mom, for example, she would have like all these candies, like hot tamales while she was working. And so I think a lot of office people like to do the sugar fasting, and it's kind of like a hidden market in a way. Because it's the same thing that I noticed at my office. I'm not going to say who it was, but I've been seeing a lot of people bring in like M&Ms and all these candy things, and like, here, you want a Jolly Rancher kind of thing. And so I think a lot of, I don't know, I think it's like an office thing, and that people, almost like a black market thing, people don't want to tell you. But when I was growing up, because she worked in an office, out of an office as a nurse, and we would have hot tamales, what all these other candies, and I would think like, let me just eat it all up. I would have like the whole, like half of the box, maybe sometimes the whole box. So that would be equivalent to 100 to 200 grams of sugar. And it's weird because then I would go home and just play a bunch of video games, and sometimes she'd be like, "You want anything to eat?" And at that time, I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course I want something to eat." But then, like, it's the weirdest thing because sometimes I'd actually be like, "No, I just want to focus on my video games." So in a way, I was doing like sugar fasting when I was younger, and obviously I was lean at that time, somewhat, and I didn't really know what was going on. I just didn't. But I actually probably have never been 16% body fat, even when I was younger. Because I would always like look at myself like, why do I have like skinny legs and I'm fat? That's how I used to look at myself when I was, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Even that early on, I would start to observe this thing. And I didn't really think much of it because I just assumed that, like, if I saw a kid that was skinny as hell, I just thought, like, you have to. I kind of looked at it because I was naive, obviously, like being young. I looked at it as, oh, you have to somehow, like, cut yourself, kind of like cut your organs in order to get that skinny. I was like, how the hell is this guy so skinny, kind of thing? I'm like, he's got nothing. He's just like skin and bones. I would look at my friends, like being 6, 7, 8 years old, and I just thought like I was destined to be fat or something. Even though I wasn't really that fat, I mean, it was like, relatively speaking, because there was like the skinny kids, and then there was hella fat kids, and I was kind of like in between. I was like, why do I feel like I don't belong anywhere? It was like, I'm not skinny, I'm not fat, and then I just felt like I didn't belong. But then eventually I did become more fat, but like kind of like a fat kid, but and I don't know why. I think it's because I felt bad for myself, so I would start to eat my way through emotionally. So I'd be like, well, my mom's gonna make this quesadilla or this omelet, so I'm just gonna eat it and then so that I could feel better about myself, or like just feel better to get through the emotional pain that I feel about myself. And that's how it used to be. But yeah, like I was telling you, but for the most part, I think I was doing a lot of the sugar fasting back then, because like she would give me those candies, and I wouldn't feel like eating. I would have so much of it, I would not feel like eating. I would get jittery though, so I would get super jittery and stuff like that, and then I'd be like, no, I want to do my play Pokemon Yellow, and I want to figure this out, play these video games, and it's just crazy because then I would after that, or I would do something with Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or some stupid thing, some toy thing, and then like after that, I just wouldn't want to eat, so I just wouldn't really eat too much, and then but I could tell you one thing about the sugar thing, is that I think it contributed to ADHD early on. I'm almost sure of it. So I think I developed ADHD from being that way for years and years before I became 12 years old. Because like what would happen is I would start to have the sugar, and then I would basically not have the ability to focus. Like I would be like, wait, why does it seem like, okay, they're telling me I have to read these books and I just can't. The only thing I could think about is my video games and like trying to get excited over that. But why do I just feel so, why do I feel like I can't just sit down, like, it just, and that's because I think it was sugar induced. So I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or anything for adults, but I would, if you can, and everybody tells you like sugar's bad for kids, but I think that would have been the primary reason that I actually got ADD. And I'm looking back and I'm like, holy crap, like that's a big deal, because it set me up for a big, like for the next 20 years or so, after that time period, which when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, it had that much destruction. So now I'm like anti-sugar, not, in a way I'm kind of well, I still have it from time to time, but but yeah, I mean, because I could tell you straight up, like that really did have that much of an impact. Like I couldn't sit down or anything, and be able to, you know, sequentially focus on anything. And then later on, when they just discover I had ADD or whatever, they gave me pills and stuff, and it just felt like the opposite. It just felt like, you know, I was induced with not being hungry on purpose, you know, because I would take those medications. And when I was 12 or 13, and we were at that house, I would, even though I would have that medication, I would also kind of like think to myself, huh, like, well, there's something about this diet soda that I like. So I would have, instead of that, I would have a Diet Coke diet. I would drink the Diet Coke and then try to do the same thing I used to do with sugar. Like I said, I didn't know anything about these diet strategies. I'm just telling you that this is how things went, because I would look at other people and see what they were doing. Because my mom loved candy and all that, you know, she would just have it all. But I would and I would also look at her and realize, oh, she's doing Diet Coke, and then I'd start to. I think I was 12 and I was playing Animal Crossing. 13. When I got back from home, all I wanted to do was play Animal Crossing for hours. So I would have diet cherry Coke. I would have about 10 of those throughout the night, and my brain was super wired. So for about 3 months, I was doing this, and I was getting so much progress in that video game. But then after 3 months, the same thing happened to me with sugar. I would start to feel jittery, and like I was gonna die or whatever. And so it was some complications with the ADHD medication. But I noticed that something didn't seem right, and I think it had to do with the aspartame in it. I think if you have it enough, that really screws up with your gut microbiome. And it's so interesting that we now know what's going, like the cat's out of the bag now. And just imagine if I grew like it's like I went to go to Greece with my dad. Imagine if I had grown up in Greece or Spain or something like that with, you know, with my parents. I'd be having that same diet of olive oil and stuff like that for freaking decades, and I'd be so clear-minded. I'd probably get straight A's in my classes and everything. Like, it's crazy what the effect of the American ways have on you when you're growing up. But anyway, so I just thought that was interesting to look back on, because yeah, it's it's kind of like, you know, what's going on here, you know. And all this stuff, I just completely forgot about it. There was something I was mentioning earlier, but it's all relevant. So yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to look back. But yeah, I'm getting towards my fitness goals, and I still have the mental clarity like I want, and yeah, it's all working out. So yeah, I just hope we'll stick to this, and we're gonna get to our goals. And I will say I do, you know, I feel sorry for a lot of people, man. I mean, you know, I heard Scott Adams has prostate cancer, and I guess they're giving him until the end of the summer to live, you know, and it's unfortunate. Hold on a second. I have 5% left. Okay, so yeah, and also Mark had that for Mark's epic weight loss, he had that blood clot, which which is very unfortunate, and it's like giving him these sensations of, like, I guess, tightness in his chest. I just really hope he feels better. I mean, it's just the most unfortunate thing. And yeah, I mean, I think the way to go is, like, you know, the most important thing you can do, I think, is to be basically paleo, in the sense of what have your ancestors do? What did your ancestors do? And that's going to make you live as long as possible. I mean, otherwise, don't expect to live that long, because you're unless there's technology that can actually propel you to live longer, and you're intentional about that. Because, like, I mean, you know, everything, the genes that we have and all that stuff is kind of prehistoric, I guess prehistoric or whatever. And it feels like we're trying to get up with the times, but it's just going to take forever because we're biological. So it's like, you know, um, you wouldn't necessarily like you need to have activity. That's what I think. I mean, you just have to have activity, even if you're feeling like shit. If things aren't going a certain way, you got to have activity. You got to do some kind of activity, um, and maybe even be a model for activity, not like an actual model, but somebody that you can look up to for activity. And so a certain level of activity has to be there, and it doesn't. You can just do something. And I remember Scott Adams would talk about that too. He would say, just if you got to work on your house, just work on your house. That's enough activity, at minimum, right? But then there's those other things too. Is like go outside, get the fresh air and stuff like that. Do something, relaxing. Maybe get a bonfire going. Go somewhere like a beach if you can. And then at the end of the day, the ultimate thing that you want to do is to be where the blue zones are, I guess, in a way, or like somewhere there's like a beach or a mountain area. That's what one YouTuber mentioned. His name is Travis Wu, and I mean that's the way to go. Um, but I mean, you could try to have certain goals and try to do certain things that are not related to your paleo past or whatever. But like you're gonna stop dead in your tracks. I mean, what's his name? Even Steve Jobs had to at some point realize, oh shit, I gotta switch things up a bit. I can't just focus. Life can't just be all about technology and some nerdy thing. You gotta actually work with your genes and your biology. And so he became I think it was a fruitarian. And so there's different things you can do. But yeah, I mean, people I think people are starting to see it. They're like, this guy's a freaking weirdo. Why is he? And like, one of my coworkers thought I was a vegan, and I'm like, I'm not against eating meat at all or anything like that. I'm also, when it comes to eating processed foods, I'm try not to. I used to, but I try not to. But you're gonna see a vegan eating all that candy crap and justifying that it's not meat and all this stuff. And I don't do a lot of things that vegetarians do. So yeah, I mean, it's just because you're trying to do something different and they can sense it. And I'm trying my best not to make it obvious. And I'm trying my best to just focus on what we got to do, like our jobs and stuff. Cause like, that's what we're doing. This is what we're all about. We're engineers. We got to, do what we got to do. So, I'm trying not to make it about that. So that I think they're kind of annoyed at the fact that maybe I'm not displaying or like trying to show off hobbies or something like they would, or not trying to show off things in my life like they would. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. At the same time, it could be completely illusionary what I'm thinking. Maybe they just don't care that much. Maybe that's just the way office politics are, where you kind of just have this weird thing like, okay, But yeah, I mean, it just makes me think about it because it's like, yeah. So the other thing too is, yeah, with the car, it's like, well, I had to do that logically. I had to save up my money, and then so now I don't have a car payment, but I have a car, so it's great, And that was a pain in the butt because, that. So like, there's just so many things that you want to do. Well, it was a pain in the butt because I had to save money, but also because we had to make sure we weren't getting screwed. I had to make sure I was getting screwed. So we probably went through 20 or 30 different deals before getting this one to see what was good. And then I spent $400 or $500 just to get inspection in total, and that includes Carfaxes and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges for things, and you have to make sure that you don't like veer off from what works in principle. And see, I started to do that with a lot of things before my ex left, because the reason is because it was just that much harder to focus on the things that were important to me versus some other things. So it's like, it felt like there were so many things on the table that I couldn't just that I had to sacrifice one thing over another, because like getting the PE was a big deal and I was on my way, but then all this other stuff happened and I bought a condo and stuff. So um whereas at the time, looking back, if I was more ketonic about stuff, not necessarily in a diet sense, but more of a sequential sense, like, oh, you don't have to put all this force into it. You could just kind of logically take your time, and you don't have to force anything. You could just sequentially do little things here and there until the whole thing gets taken care of. If I was just like that from the start, I don't even think I would have crashed my first vehicle. I'd probably still have that Toyota Corolla my dad gave me, the 2014, so that ended up being a large cost at the end of the day, if you think about it. But I'm just saying, right? Like, you kind of live and learn and understand how things work. But yeah, it's interesting because, like, even the diet thing within itself, or like the whole goal, this fitness goal within itself, like, I could never imagine myself doing this much to get to where I want to be, because I'm thinking to myself, I just have to go to the gym, or I just have to. This was like 6-7 years ago. I'm listening to my friends. They're telling me to do Muay Thai or some shit, and telling me to like eat bananas and stuff, and get into, just go to the gym, blah blah blah, and you're fat fuck, you're this way or whatever, or oh yeah, it's okay, you're chubby and all this stuff. It's like, well, come on, man. It's whereas if I had taken it sequentially, I'd be like, okay, well, I kind of know what works. Let's just stick to that for months. It's like, well, okay, well, that means that you're not going to be drinking. That means you're not going to maybe once every 1 or 2 months, but you're not going to be drinking every Friday night because it's a Friday night and you just want to let loose or something like that, or you want to fit in or something. Okay, you're not going to be trying to go to some bar thing or whatever. You're not going to be trying to hit people up that you on Facebook that you knew before, because for some reason you feel sad and like you don't have I don't know what you want to call it, like you have the fear of missing out and blah blah blah. It's like, now it's like, no, I know something that works. It's working. I don't care if it's taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Stick to it. It works. That's it. Come on. Let's get this done. And I don't care if people know about it too. I mean, obviously I do to some extent because I'm posting it on YouTube. But I'm just saying, it's like that whole thing. It's like, come on, stick to it, man. Get this shit done, man. You don't have to get it done overnight. Just take it a step at a time and things will work out. Trust the process. Trust the higher power, whatever that might be. Appreciate where you are. Breathe properly. Things will work out for you, and appreciate what you have. That's essentially what it is. So thanks for watching. I just felt like talking for whatever amount of time because it's a Friday, and yeah, I'm gonna be going to the gym after work, and actually I'm gonna probably end up running after the gym, or after work, and do another 7-mile run. Yeah, these 7-mile runs and stuff like that, where they're becoming a lot easier to do than they were before. I mean, as I'm losing the weight, I don't know if I should say easier, but more manageable. Like, it just seems like I can rest better and then just kind of recover or whatever. But yeah, wish me luck. I wish you luck. Mark's up with weight loss, and Scott Adams. I feel extremely fortunate that I'm learning the paleo or biological ways of things. At the age of 32, I'm turning 32 next month, because it's going to help me to have longevity and be able to enjoy my time with family and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, thank you for watching, and yeah, have a good day.